Good morning. Welcome to the first meeting of the Assembly Committee on Government Affairs for the 82nd Legislative Session. Ms. Stringer, please call the roll.
Assemblyman Carter.
Present.
Assemblyman DeLong.
Here.
Assemblyman De Silva.
Here.
Assemblywoman Duran.
Here.
Assemblywoman Gonzalez.
Here.
Assemblyman Gurr.
Here.
Assemblyman Hibbets.
Here.
Assemblyman Kinnick. Assemblyman MacArthur.
Here.
Assemblyman Nguyen.
Here.
Assemblywoman Taylor.
Present.
Assemblywoman Thomas.
Here.
Chair Torres.
Was it off this whole time? I guess I forgot how to use the speaker button. Everyone is present, Ms. Stringer. Please indicate all committee members present, and welcome to our audience in Carson City, those of us joining us by video conference in Las Vegas, and anyone tuning in over the internet. Today we have introductions, adoption of committee policies, and presentations from committee staff and the Public Employees Retirement System. Before we start, I would like to make several housekeeping announcements. The Assembly Committee on Government Affairs will be meeting at 9 a.m. Tuesday through Friday this week. As more bills are referred to the committee, we may switch back to our regularly scheduled time at 8 a.m. When testifying, please turn the microphones on to speak and off to listen. So for those of us up here, it's the mic button, not the speak button, like I kept pressing. We have listeners and viewers in Las Vegas and online. We are recording this meeting, so it'll be available on the legislature's website later on. If you have handouts for the committee, please provide 20 copies to the committee secretary prior to your testimony. In addition, exhibits and amendments must be submitted electronically as a PDF file to our committee manager no later than noon on the business day before the meeting. Committee information is available on Nellis, which can be accessed through the legislature's website. You may also watch our meetings through Nellis or the legislature's YouTube channel. We ask that public comment be kept to 2 minutes so that everyone interested in speaking can be accommodated. And this also ensures we can get through the agenda in a timely fashion. Speakers are urged to avoid repeating comments made by previous speakers. Members of the public may provide testimony on a bill either in person or by telephone. Written public comment may be submitted before, during, or up to 24 hours after the meeting adjournment. I expect courtesy and respect in our interactions in this room and outside of this room, even if we do not agree. And finally, please mute your electronic devices, especially cell phones, during the meetings. With that, we will go ahead and move on to our first agenda item. I would like to take a few minutes to introduce members of the committee and committee staff. Members, if each of you would introduce yourselves, please include the district that you represent, the year you were first elected, and how many sessions you have served on the Assembly Committee on Government Affairs. If you would go ahead and kick us off, Vice Chair Assemblywoman Duran.
Good morning and welcome to the committee. I am Assemblywoman B. Duran. I represent District 11 in downtown, part of most downtown Las Vegas. This is my third year. This is my third time on government affairs. I've been with a little bit about myself. I've been with the Culinary Union for 23 years. I am a grievance specialist. My family is originally from Wyoming, and I've been in Las Vegas since 1985. I have 2 children, 4 grandchildren, and just recently became a great-grandmother. It's a little bit about me. Thank you.
And committee members, we're going to go ahead and just continue like us in a circle, and then we'll come back up to the dais.
Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Assemblywoman Gonzalez, and I represent Assembly District 16, really in the heart of Las Vegas, right smack in the middle. And this is my second term, and this is my first time on government affairs, so I'm excited to be learning with all my other first timers on this committee. And a little bit about me, I am a native Las Vegan. My family moved from Thailand and Mexico, migrated here, and I'm an educator and getting my PhD in education. And I study the nexus of the justice system and the education system. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Assemblyman DeLong. I represent District 26, which is southern Washoe County, southern part of Reno, and then a lot of unincorporated county area. A little bit of background about me. I am a geologist by education. First came to Nevada 42 years ago, looking for and finding gold deposits. I've been working in the private sector for all my career. So, thank you.
Good morning. I guess that's on. Microphones scare the hell out of me. So anyway, my name is Bert Gurr. I'm Assemblyman from the District 33, which is 46,000 square miles. It's most of Oco County. Used to be all of Oco County, but redistricting got rid of some of it. Most of Eureka, all of White Pine, all of Lincoln, and about 3/4 of Nye County. It's 512 miles in a straight line, as best I can figure from one end to the other. So that's my district. I've been a real estate broker since 1979. I am not quite a native of Elko. My dad moved us there when I was 18 months old, so I'm close. Been in the real estate business, like I say, since 79, since 49. This is my first time, obviously, and on this side of the microphone. I've sat in the audience a lot during the sessions. It's a lot easier out there, I'll tell you right now. But I'm excited to be here. It's obviously first time on this committee or any committee at this level. I was a real estate commissioner for 6 years for the state of Nevada. I've been in the process, and I'm excited to be here today. Thank you.
Okay, apparently I have issues with the buttons as well. All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Yui Nguyen. I am so proud to represent Assembly District 8. I am on a statewide initiative to teach everyone, folks on this dais and on the audience and folks on the phone, how to say my first name. Think of me when you do a U-turn, Yui, right? Every time someone defaults to calling me Assemblyman Nguyen, I know we don't use first name here, but or people who are friends of mine and, you know, friends in the building. They look at me and, hey, you. I go, okay, you forgot how to say my first name. So how you can really learn is get my first name, and we're going to be great in talking to each other. So let's start out of the way. We'll have these lessons repeatedly. I know we have a bunch of educators in this building, so we're going to remind folks to help me out with that. I am an immigrant. I immigrate here from Vietnam at the age of 11 and live in California, and then moved here to Nevada about 20 years ago. I'm in nonprofit. I'm very proud to work for an organization that serves the largest and fastest growing population in Nevada, which is the Asian Pacific Islander community. And my district, District 8, has a majority of growth that is there in the state, and we're one of the most diverse districts. You know, my passion has always been about helping others, and that's why with my career, I've always been very, very fortunate to have the opportunity, just as I do today, in serving the state. I'm a parent, a spouse. I have a awesome 4-year-old. I mean, ooh, whoa. Got to know my age on the kids there. I have a 3-year-old and a 9-year-old, and I was so proud that he was able to witness me signing my oath of office yesterday. So that was a really surreal moment for me. So glad to be here. I've been on government affairs for 13 minutes. So glad to be here and looking forward to working with everyone. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Good morning, everyone. I am Angie Taylor, and I proudly represent District 27 in Reno, Nevada. West University goes up north to some of Steg, goes across to all of Sun Valley, and then back down to McCarran. First term legislator, so obviously first term on government affairs. I think now 14 minutes. Right, 14 minutes on it.
You're a senior.
I'm senior now.
Yeah.
14 minutes, but very excited to be here, very excited to serve, honored to be a part of this body. A little bit about me. I was born in San Francisco. My mom relocated the family to Reno, Nevada. So I went to 1 year of middle school, high school, have my degrees from the University of Nevada, Reno. Go Pack! And I served on the school board for 8 years, and then now I have an opportunity to serve here at this level. So lifetime educator. I'm a small business owner. We do consulting and training and corporate teaching and training and leadership and diversity, all kinds of stuff like that. But right now, for the next 119 days, I am almost solely a legislator. I'm glad to be here. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Brian Hibbets. I represent Assembly District 13 in the northwest portion of Las Vegas. This is obviously my first term, otherwise I wouldn't be sitting in the front row. I am a Vegas native, born and raised, lived there my entire life. I spent my entire adult life in public service. I recently retired from the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department after a little over 27 years, and now I serve the people of our state. I'm looking forward to working with everybody. Thank you.
My name's Greg Koenig, pronounced Koenig, and I represent District 38, which goes from Fernley in the north down to Tonopah in the south. So I have most of Lyon, all of Churchill, all of Mineral, all of Esmeralda, a little bit of Nye. I think we got a couple districts in Tonopah. So yeah, I represent rural Nevada. Yesterday I said me and Assemblyman Gurr represent the rurals, and then I got a whole bunch of people saying, I represent a little bit of rural, and I represent a little bit of rural, but they might be rural, but we're ruraler. I'm a practicing optometrist, 5th generation Falonite. I saw my last patient about a week ago, and it's kind of weird knowing I won't see another one for 4 months. I have a business partner that's going to have to work his butt off to keep us up and going, and my schedule for the first 2 months I get back is already full, so there's not going to be any rest once this is over. Freshman, looking forward to it, and I'm excited. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Ruben De Silva, and I represent Assembly District 28 in Northeast Las Vegas. This is parts of the city of Las Vegas, parts of North Las Vegas, unincorporated Clark County. A little bit about myself. I also am an immigrant. I was born in Mumbai. Back then it was called Bombay, India. And I came to the United States when I was about 2 years old. We lived in New York City till I was 6, and then moved to Northeast Las Vegas, and I've been there pretty much my entire life. I am a school teacher. I teach at Rancho High School, the high school that I graduated from. And I've been doing that now for 9 years. And prior to that, I served in the United States Marine Corps. Saw extensive action in the Iraq War in the Fallujah, Ramadi, Habaniya area. And I'm looking to now serve alongside these distinguished folks here on the Government Affairs Committee. Obviously, I am a freshman. And I have now been on the committee, I think, for 17 minutes and 16, 17, 18 seconds counting. And I'm looking forward to serving this state. Thank you, everybody.
My name is Max Carter. I represent Assembly District 12, which is the east side of the Las Vegas Valley, and it wraps around Sunrise Mountain and takes in the northern section of Henderson, Lake of Las Vegas, and Calico Ridge. I'm a brand-new legislator, and this is my very first committee.
Good morning. My name is Richard MacArthur. This is my 5th session, and I represent Assembly District 4, which is in the northwest part of Las Vegas. My background, after college, I entered the Air Force. I was a pilot, did that for a few years, and after that, I joined the FBI. I was an FBI agent for 25 years. Once I retired from that, then I got involved in politics. So this is my 5th session up here. Thank you.
What I think Assemblyman MacArthur failed to note for the record is that he was also a football player at UC Davis.
Good morning. I'm Clara Thomas. I represent Assembly District 17 in beautiful North Las Vegas. And some of the landmarks of North Las Vegas, I represent Nellis Air Force Base, about 5-mile radius. Also, the Speedway, VA Hospital. I have the distinct pleasure in, I don't know how many people are familiar with the pig farm. That's my district. So I am so proud to be on this committee again. This is my second time being on Government Affairs. I think this is the best committee, I'll say it, that we actually have here. Some people want to go to Judiciary, some people want to go to Ways and Means. I'm letting you know right now, Government Affairs, count yourself lucky. This is a great committee, and I'm proud to be on it. And I've been in the Valley for about 40 years. I've raised 2 children here, first-time Nevadans, and I have 4 grandkids, and they are second-generation Nevadans. And we are very proud of my little family here. Originally from Brooklyn, New York, yay Brooklyn, and a graduate of UNLV. Go Rebels. Just letting you know. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Assembly members, for indulging in those remarks. As you can see, I've lost my voice mostly, so I'm going to just give very brief remarks, but I'm sure that we'll continue to get to know each other throughout the remaining 119 days of joy. So thank you, everybody, for participating. I'm Assemblywoman Selena Torres. I proudly represent Assembly District 3, which is in West Las Vegas area. I grew up in the district that I currently represent, and I'm very proud to continue to live there. I'm also an educator. I'm a high school English teacher, although currently I work as an instructional coach, and I oversee a team of about 20 English teachers at my school, in middle school and high school. My favorite teacher in that group is, of course, my mom, who works with me at Matter Academy East Las Vegas. I am very excited to be returning to the Government Affairs Committee, and this time as chair. I did have the opportunity and the pleasure to serve as vice chair last legislative session, so it's nice to come back into this committee and see some familiar faces. I know that Assemblyman MacArthur said that he would only come back to this committee if I got to serve in it, so thank you, Assemblyman MacArthur. We were able to both make the cut. On this committee, we have a breadth of lived and professional experience. I think, it's so nice to have so many individuals from different parts of the state of Nevada, as well as individuals that represent different occupations, different experiences. And that is true representation of the various communities within our great state. I'm confident from the vast experience within this room, and within this group of excellent legislators, that we will come together to formulate policy that creates solutions for our state's most pressing issues, with the ultimate shared goal of bettering the lives of our constituents and the communities that we have the pleasure of serving. This year, we have a great group of lawmakers new to the legislature, and additionally, this is probably the committee with the largest amount of freshman legislators. So I'm so excited to work with you all, and please use us as a resource. I know we have a couple veterans here, but altogether, this is a pretty young committee in legislative years. So I'm really excited to get the opportunity to do this work with you all. So at this time, we're going to go ahead and introduce committee staff. I will say that, Vice Chair, if it's all right, what we'll do is I'll introduce one, and then you'll introduce one, and then I'll introduce one, just to give my voice a little bit of a break. And I do want to express that we have the hardest working staff in this legislative building. I've had the pleasure of working with most of these individuals last legislative session, and then in the weeks prior to being here, they have been behind the scenes working. So while we have the opportunity to be at home, kind of finishing our last couple weeks of work, they're here working probably overtime to get bills out in a legal's case, or to get these policy briefs and help advise legislators on policies that they're working on, or they're at the computer in their office really struggling with the new system where they have to update the agendas. So we really appreciate the work that our committee staff has done to make sure that this committee runs smoothly each and every single day. So The three that you see sitting with this committee right now is Jennifer Ruetti. She is our committee policy analyst and is returning to the Assembly Committee on Government Affairs after last staffing it in 2013. I'm gonna wave so everybody knows. She's right here. She doesn't want to wave. Our committee staff is a little shyer than us. This is her fifth time staffing government affairs after several sessions on the Senate side. She grew up here in Carson City before moving to Arizona to complete both her bachelor's and master's degree. This will be her 14th session as she worked for both the Assembly and the Senate before joining the Research Division in 2001, where she is now a Deputy Research Director.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I hope your voice gets better. The committee will have two counsel this session, with Asher Killian taking the lead. Mr. Killian is a Chief Deputy Legislative Counsel in the Legal Division. He began his legislative service career in 2007, following a year in the City Attorney's Office in the city of Norman in his native Oklahoma. During this time with Legal Division, Asher has staffed numerous legislative committees on topics including commerce and labor, education, government affairs, health, redistricting, affordable housing, and cannabis. In addition to having written or reviewed thousands of bills on additional topics including education, finance, professional regulation, insurance, banking, public utilities, employment, and civil rights. Mr. Killian holds a Juris Doctor degree, a Bachelor of Science degree in psychology, a Bachelor of Arts degree in letters, and a Bachelor of Arts in social sciences and organizational studies, all from the University of Oklahoma. Mr. Killian is admitted to practice in law in Oklahoma and Nevada. He is an avid fan of San Francisco Giants baseball, Detroit Red Wings hockey, and Oklahoma Sooners football. And he can say hello to us, wave to us, Mr. Killian.
Our second counsel is Sarah DeLapp. She is a Deputy Legislative Counsel with the Legislative Counsel Bureau, and she began her role with the Legal Division in 2020. Ms. DeLapp is originally from Salt Lake City, Utah. She received her bachelor's degree from Utah State University and then went on to the University of Utah for law school. This is her first committee assignment, and we're really excited to have you in here.
One of the people working diligently behind the scenes to keep us organized is Judy Bishop. Miss Judy, can you raise your hand? She is a lovely person. We adore her. Miss Bishop is the committee manager. She moved to Northern Nevada in 1980. She worked for local attorneys from 1983 to 1989, with her first legislative session in 1989. From 1990 through 2019, she worked for several state departments, including the Division of Investigations, Lieutenant Governor's Office, and the Commission on Economic Development, as well as the legislative sessions on the Assembly, Taxation, Commerce and Labor, and Government Affairs committees. This will be her 10th season and 4th time serving on the Government Affairs Committee. She has an associate degree through Western Nevada College, has been part of a local clogging dance group for more than 30 years, and took up acrylic painting in 2020. She and her husband celebrated their 51st wedding anniversary last September.
We should also note that you can see some of Ms. Bishop's paintings on the 4th floor. So if you look around, some are in my office, but then also in the halls. A lot of those paintings are done by Ms. Bishop or her daughter too. So they're beautiful, so make sure you check them out. The committee assistant is Ms. Cheryl Williams, and she is a double native Nevadan. She comes from the Pyramid Lake Paiute tribe. She had no shame in raising her hand because she likes you all to know who she is. She grew up in Reno and moved to Fallon as an adult. She retired from the Churchill County School District. This is her 9th session, and Government Affairs is her favorite committee. Her interests are anything connected to horses and cowboys, and we're so lucky to welcome her back.
There are 4 committee secretaries working with the committee, and today we have Gigi Stiger working the meeting. Ms. Stiger returns for her 3rd legislative session and her 3rd time with Government Affairs. Before co-retiring to Carson City with her husband in 2017, Ms. Stiger enjoyed a 30-year career as a paralegal in the fields of trusts and estates and federal contracts administration. She holds a Juris Doctor and in midlife set for the California bar exam. She is an adventure addict loving all manner of outdoor recreation and all the surprises that unfold with road tripping in a camper van and traveling to foreign destination. She also loves dance and theater, both as a spectator and a participant. Ms. Digger was born in the Philippines and immigrated to the U.S. in 1970.
Lindsay Howell is a committee secretary who grew up in Winnemucca, Nevada. Did you wave, Lindsay? Thank you. And is a member of the Yarrington Paiute tribe. In 2020, she obtained a bachelor's degree in English literature from the University of Nevada, Reno, which is also the same degree I got at UNR. She is currently applying to graduate school where she plans to pursue an MFA in creative writing. In her free time, she enjoys art, playing with her cat, cooking, and wandering outdoors. This will be Ms. Howell's second legislative session, and we're so lucky to welcome her back to our committee.
Diane Abbott grew up in the Midwest, moving on her own to the Bay Area when she was 17. She has lived in northern Nevada since 1996 and has 2 children, ages 19 and 23. In 2013, she began working for the LCB as the assistant manager of publications and gift shop. Since resigning in 2018, she has managed her vacation rentals, continued work as an event stylist, and acquired real estate license. Diane is an agent with Chase International Real Estate in Reno, but works with clients throughout the Reno-Tahoe area. She absolutely loves working with folks who are buying, selling, or improving their homes. In her spare time, she enjoys hiking with her 2 dogs, hanging out with her kids, cooking, and gardening. Welcome.
Dylan Small is our 4th and newest committee secretary. He was born in Carson City but grew up in Hawaii. Mr. Small was previously a union organizer, and now he is pursuing an undergraduate degree with an eye toward law school. This is his first time working in the legislative session, and he's very excited. And you know what? I have to say, you joined the best committee that you could have, so we're happy to have you on our team. Lastly, I am fortunate to have Henry Rosas as my personal attaché. Mr. Rosas was born and raised in Phoenix, Arizona, and he brings previous government and policy experience through his work with Arizona Congressman Ruben Gallego and Unidos US. He has also served as a consultant for statewide and national Latino-serving nonprofits and political organizations. A graduate of Yale University with a concentration in ethnic studies, he's looking forward to using his role to make the legislative process more inclusive of working-class communities of color. Last but not least, we also have our BPS staff who make these meetings possible through their technological expertise. Thank you, staff, for all that you do to make sure that these meetings run smoothly and efficiently. And I know that we are so fortunate to have you all behind the scenes so that we can make this committee more accessible to our community throughout the state of Nevada. And with that, let us go ahead and get started. So first, we're going to go ahead and go into committee policies. Our first order of business is the adoption of the committee's policies, which are posted on the legislature's website. These policies are fairly standard and similar to those approved in other committees. They serve to complement the Assembly standing rules and the joint standing rules that we adopted yesterday in the full Assembly. Are there any questions? Seeing none, I will take a motion to adopt the policies for the Assembly Committee on Government Affairs.
I motion. To adopt it.
I second the motion.
And I have a motion from Assemblywoman Duran and a second from Assemblywoman Gonzalez. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. The motion carries. Next, our committee policy analyst, Jennifer Ruetti, will present our committee policy brief.
Good morning. This is Jennifer Rudy with the Research Division. I am a committee policy analyst for the Assembly Committee on Government Affairs. And what I'm going to talk to you about is the committee brief, which is up on Nellis. And I would just like to say that I am part of the professional nonpartisan staff of the Legislative Council Bureau. I got to meet many of you during the Legislative Training Academy, which I also want to say that I agree with Assemblywoman Thomas. I count myself lucky to be back on the Assembly Committee on Government Affairs. After several sessions on the Senate, it's fun to be back on the Assembly. To start, the committee brief is kind of a tradition with the research division. Each session, they prepare a committee brief to provide you some background on the committee that you're serving on. So you will actually be sitting through a lot of these presentations in the next couple days. They will be fairly short because there is a hard copy, and you're welcome to use it as a resource. Some of the things that it includes are an introduction to the committee, including the staff, which you just got a very detailed introduction to all of the staff, so I'm not going to go over that. Session deadlines that are important to the work of the committee. All of you should be familiar with the 120-day calendar. Hopefully you have copies of it up in your offices. Those deadlines are very impactful for the committee's work. You will notice March 20th is a bill introduction deadline, and you will see a massive influx of bills introduced and referred to committees on or before that date. Those will be fairly long floor sessions on the 19th and 20th to get all those bills introduced. And then you'll see between then and April 14th, that finite period of time is when this committee will hear a lot of bills. In fact, this committee has has historically had the second highest volume of bills of the policy committee, so right behind judiciary. So you're going to be working really hard this session. So the deadlines that are really impactful for the committee are April 14th. That is when the bills need to be processed by this committee. The assembly bills need to be processed by this committee, so the first House deadline. And then May 19th, that is when the Senate bills or the bills from the second House need to be processed by this committee. So those deadlines are on your 120-day calendar, and they are also in the committee brief. To give you an idea of some of the workload of the committee in the most recent session, the next page on page 2 shows that there were 111 measures referred to the Assembly Committee on Government Affairs in the 2021 session. And of those, 88 measures were voted out of the committee, and 79 measures were passed and sent to the governor. There was only one bill, Senate Bill 254, which was vetoed. There's already 21 bills pre-filed and referred to this committee. If you saw yesterday on the floor, a lot of those were, Susan Furlong did a great job reading through lots and lots of those bills. And there's a list in Appendix A of the committee brief of the 21 bills that have already been pre-filed and referred to this committee. Looking at both the bills that were referred to the Senate Committee on Government Affairs and the Assembly Committee on Government Affairs, you can get kind of an idea of the topics that will come before this committee. And I see already bills related to city charters, emergency management, military and veterans, open meeting law, public employee retirement and health benefits, public records, public works and purchasing, state financial administration, and unfunded mandates on local governments. There is also an appendix that I should mention in Appendix B. It is a lot of the glossary of government affairs related terms. And I don't want to say that by giving you that likely topics in 2023, there will be lots of other topics too. Those are just ones that I can see right now are coming to this committee. The committee jurisdiction, just to be forewarned in all of your committees actually, that the two houses don't have identical jurisdiction. So there may be the majority of the bills will go to both committees in each house, but there will be a few outliers that for some reason they've gone through the Assembly Committee on Government Affairs, but they're referred to the Senate Committee on Education, so don't be alarmed, that's not an error, that's just slight differences in the jurisdiction of the two committees, but the majority do stay within the same committees in each house. I did link some of the research division publications. Shameless promo here, I guess. We do try to push out publications that should be of interest and assistance to you in your work. Also, the audit division of the Legislative Council Bureau has some audit reports that you may be interested in. So those are also linked, several of the publications and the audit reports. Some of the resources are also linked, the State of Nevada major elected officers, contact information for them, the Directory of State and Local Government. An update should be coming out very soon on that. and the Nevada State Government Organizational Chart, which in this committee you get so many bills related to state and local government that that's kind of helpful to visualize where these different departments and agencies are. Population classifications, I do want to mention the Nevada Association of Counties has a bill that's already been pre-filed and referred to the Senate Committee on Government Affairs, Senate Bill 21, that will revise population classifications somewhat. The population charts, I believe, is Appendix C. And I will say, I actually, out of everything in the committee brief, this is what I use the most, because your bills will often say, they won't name the cities and the counties. They will say this impacts counties over 700,000. So I'm often pulling out these county and city tables to figure out which city does this impact, which county does this impact. So I actually find this to be the most useful part of the committee brief. That is it for me. If you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And just for committee members, especially for our newer members, so if you print out the file, it's great and it's super helpful. But if you use the Nellis version, a lot of the document has very helpful links, so you can use that to kind of find other resources that pertain to this committee. Additionally, if you need additional information or if you're in a committee hearing and you have additional questions, you can always contact Ms. Rudy to find out more information on that topic, as well as the stakeholders that'll be present in this room. Next, today, we will have a presentation from Ms. Tina Liss? Liss, I apologize. Ms. Tina Liss, the Executive Officer of the Public Employee Retirement System.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I'm Tina Liss. I'm the Executive Officer of the Public Employees Retirement System, which we refer to as either PERS, the system, or the retirement system. With me today is Steve Edmondson. He is the Chief Investment Officer for the Public Employees Retirement System. I have been with the system since 2004 as the Operations Officer and the Executive Officer, and before that I was the Deputy Attorney General for the system from 2001. Steve has been with the system on the investment staff since 2005. The system is a fairly complicated topic, and so I will do my best to give you a briefing on it in about 20 minutes or so. And of course, we are always available for questions online, offline. If ever you need any information from us, we are happy to provide that to you. So we just start with what is the Public Employees Retirement System. And basically what we do is provide the retirement benefits to all public employees in the state of Nevada, which includes all your state employees, your local government employees, school districts, cities, counties. We have mosquito abatement districts that are their own separate public employers in the state of Nevada, and we cover all of those public employees. We are a constitutionally created trust, which means that we are in the Constitution of the state of Nevada, which is very important for our members and beneficiaries because that makes sure that their retirement funds are protected from any other use. We are in what we call a multiple employer cost-sharing defined benefit pension plan, which means that all employers and employees that participate in our plan participate equally with the same benefit structure and the same contribution rates. So the Washoe County, the City of Reno, City of Las Vegas, Clark County School District all have the same benefit structure and the same contribution rates. The only difference is that we have a regular fund, which is all members that are not police and firefighters. There is a separate benefit structure and separate contribution rate for our police and firefighters, but they do all participate in the same system. We also have two smaller systems. One is the legislators' retirement system, and that is for the legislators for their service while they are in the legislature. And then we have the judicial retirement system, which is separate, and that covers your state judges, your Supreme Court justices, district court judges, your appeals court judges, plus any municipal court judges and justices of the peace that work for local governments who have elected to cover their judges. If they have not elected to cover the judges, then those judges are in PERS. Our benefits are based on a statutory formula, which is calculated on the length of service, the average compensation, so the highest 3 years of compensation, and a service time multiplier. So any given year, depending on when the person entered public service, they get either 2.5% or 2.67 or 2.25% per year of service, up to a maximum of 75% of their salary in a benefit. And then that benefit is paid for their lifetime. So that differs from a defined contribution plan where you have a pot of money and then that is what they have at the end of their career to then kind of live through their retirement years. What we have is that we guarantee that monthly benefit for however long that member lives. And that is very important for our members because our members do not participate in Social Security. So we are the only retirement security for the public employees of the state. And so that was an election that the state made to not cover our employees in Social Security. And because we are a pre-funded plan, we believe that that is financially much more beneficial to our state and to our members and retirees to not be paying into Social Security for that benefit. So we essentially are Social Security plus a retirement plan for our members. Just want to briefly give you the constitutional authority for us because we are a little different than any other agency that you will see in the legislature because we are in the Constitution. First of all, we are in the Constitution to protect the trust fund itself, to make sure that any money paid for the purpose of funding and administering a public employee's retirement system must be segregated, cannot be used for any other purpose. So once the money goes into our trust fund, it can only be used to pay our members and their beneficiaries retirement benefits. Another provision in the state constitution is that any money paid for the purpose of funding and administering the system cannot be loaned to the state or invested to purchase any obligations. So we cannot buy state bonds, local government bonds, and we cannot loan money to the state. The public employees retirement system is governed by a retirement board. The board employs me under the Constitution, and I serve at the pleasure of the board. And the board shall hire an independent actuary, and the board is required to adopt the recommendations of that independent actuary. This is to ensure that we kind of keep the decision-making on the retirement system very independent of any political processes or any other special interest groups to make sure that the best interests of our members and beneficiaries are always taken into account. Next, I just put in the mission because it is the legislature that declares what it is that you want the retirement system to do. And this is the mission that we have had since 1947, since we were created. Last year was our 75th anniversary. The mission is three parts. First is to provide public workers and their dependents with a retirement program that provides a reasonable base income for retirement or periods where disability has removed the worker's earning capacity. This is so that when the time has come that people is to retire, that the money is there for them to do so. When we were created in 1947, our members, our public employees had no Social Security, no retirement benefits, and were financially unable to retire. And so they were considered what the term back in the 40s was hidden pensioners, those that just had to stay on the job because they simply could not afford to retire. So that's one portion of our mission. The other is to what we call attract and retain, encourage those workers to enter into and remain in government service for such periods of time as to give public employers and the people of the state the full benefit of their training and experience. This is what the employers and our citizens get, is to make sure that we train our employees and we have the best, most experienced public employees that we can have for our citizens. And then to provide an orderly method of promoting and maintaining a high level of service to the public through an equitable separation procedure to make sure that when it is time for employees to retire, that they can do so. Next, I want to just show you a little bit about the structure of our system, and this shows a little bit why we are independent of the state executive branch. I know it's a little hard to read. Right now, the employees and the employers both share equally in the cost of the plan. So each side pays 50% of the contribution. So the one side is our 111,000 active members. That's the regular and the police fire fund. So they pay half the cost in the contribution rate. And the other side is the employers that pay. And you'll see the largest portion, and that green portion, is our largest public employer, which is the Clark County School District. They account for about 30% of our membership. The next largest slice is the state of Nevada. They have approximately 17, 18, if you include university system, closer to 20% of our membership. The third largest employer is Clark County, then Washoe County School District, then Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, and then the other blue slice is our remaining about 200, over 200 employers, 210 employers. So that's how we're broken up. The state is not our largest employer. It is the Clark County School District, and so we serve all of these employers equally. And I won't go through all of these numbers, but just for your information, this is the regular fund membership. This is where the lion's share of the members are, and this is where the lion's share of the liabilities are as well. As of June 30, 2022, there were 95,000 active members. That's up a little bit from the 93,000 active members the year before, and you'll see that average annual salary is right around $54,000, and you'll see the average age of the regular fund is about 45 years of age with almost 10 years of service. So that kind of shows kind of the retention of the public employees there. Next, I just want to look a little bit at the police fire membership. Their membership is a little bit different just because it's a smaller fund. It's a little more volatile. 12,850 members, you'll notice that is down from 13,134 the prior year. We normally would not see a drop in active membership in a fund, and that does have implications obviously for our public employers and their staffing, but it also has implications for our funding. A lot of our funding is dependent on the size of the payroll, and so when you see that drop of active members, sometimes we want to look at what's behind that and see if it's going to be a long-term trend. You'll see this is a couple hundred members that was lost as the active membership. If you look behind it, almost all of that loss was on the state employment side. So it was the state of Nevada that lost most of the active police fire members. Most of the other employers in the police fire fund actually stayed about level as far as their employment. The average age in this fund is a little bit lower, which is kind of the goal behind the police fire fund. The difference in the benefits is that the police fire fund can retire earlier at a younger age, and the reason for that, the legislative policy behind that, is to make sure that the state has a youthful and vigorous frontline public safety force that is capable of protecting the public from physical harm. So the reason for the early retirement is to make sure that we have the useful and vigorous force for our citizens. There's sometimes a common misperception that the police fire, the early retirement, is to a reward for hazardous duty. That is not. Typically, you would find reward for hazardous duty in any occupation to be in active pay. And that you can also see reflected here as well, because the average salary for our police fire fund is about $83,000, which is significantly higher than the regular fund. Next, just briefly on our benefit recipients, we have the service retirees, or it's the lion's share of our benefit recipients. We also have a disability program because our members don't have Social Security. This would be the only disability that they have, and you can see that we've broken it by the numbers, the average age, and the average benefit for each of these. The beneficiaries you see on here, when a member retires, they can take in the regular fund a reduced benefit and cover a beneficiary, and that can be anyone that they choose, but it can only be one person, and they have to choose it at the time of retirement. And so what you see of beneficiaries, about 5,000 in the regular fund, those are people that were chosen as beneficiaries, and the retiree has passed away, and now the beneficiary is continuing on with that benefit. And then survivors, we have a program, again, because we don't have Social Security, we have a program where either a spouse or a designated survivor for someone who's unmarried receives a benefit if a member dies while they are an active participating a public employee. And also minor children would receive that benefit as well. So that you see, thankfully, smaller numbers there for those survivors of those active members who have passed away. Just briefly about how we fund the benefit. As you might imagine, when we have a benefit that we're going to pay someone for however long they live, our benefit is based on a lot of unknown things that we just don't know until someone has passed away. And so we have to estimate essentially with the actuary what those benefits will cost. And because it is obviously dependent on what the salary someone will retire with, how many years of service they will retire with, what age they will retire at, and then how long they will live. And there are some other factors that will go into there as well. But those benefit costs are always going to be a function of the benefit design. And the plan design or the benefit design is set by the legislature. And so the benefit design is going to set the costs, and then we use all those estimates of how long we think people will live, not how long we think, but how long the actuary determines using mortality tables, how long people will live. And so that's how the cost is created, is the benefit design that the legislature has created. And then there are really only two ways that you're going to fund that benefit. That's through contributions from your members and your employees, and through investment return. And so at any given time, the investment return will be about 60 to 80% of the benefits that are paid out, and the remainder is contributions that we receive from the employers and the employees. And those contribution rates, the legislature sets the mechanism for which how we get the contributions, and it is based on what the actuary determines every other year is needed to fund those benefits based on what we see for the current experience of the demographics and the economic factors as well. You may have heard something called a funded ratio. This is one measure and only one measure to determine the health of a retirement system. I just show you here for there's 10 years of data here. And what this measures is our estimated liabilities. Again, we don't know exactly how much we're going to need to pay out because we don't know that until we know how long everyone's going to live and all those unknown factors. So we take that estimated liability. So for everybody we have in the system right now, the actuary estimates how much we're going to need to pay them off through their lifetime. And so these are liabilities that are owed not necessarily today or tomorrow, the next 10 years, but these are liabilities that we estimate that are owed 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years from now. If you have a 20-year-old who enters the system now, they work, say, 30 to 40 years, and then they may live 30 years in retirement. So we have somebody, typically, we can have them for 60 to 70 years between their active career and their retirement. So what this chart shows you is we estimate the liability for everybody that we will owe them into the future. So this isn't money that we owe now. This is money that's being accrued, and for all the current members, what we will owe them off in the coming decades. And then we compare that to our assets. What assets do we have on hand now compared to the liabilities that we owe out into the future? And so as of 2022, we were about 75% funded, and that's been fairly steady. We will say that we like the slow and steady. We don't like to see big variations in the funded ratio up and down, because what that's telling you is you're getting big variations of liabilities and assets from year to year, and we'd rather not see that. You want to see there's a slow and steady progress forward with that. And just to show you a comparison, on here, the black bar is the assets themselves, the actuarial value of assets, and how they've grown over the last 10 years. And below that is what we call the unfunded liability, or that approximately 20% difference between the two. This chart just kind of shows you the depiction of where we are as far as the assets are growing and the liabilities. And now I will turn it over to Steve, because he's the expert on the investment side, and he will tell you a little bit about how we do those investments to fund the benefits.
Yes, good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Steve Edmondson, Chief Investment Officer of Nevada PERS. Beginning on the slide titled PERS Investment Strategy, which is effectively a snapshot of PERS investment program and our asset allocation, which is ultimately designed to achieve PERS long-term investment targets and what the actuary assumes that we'll achieve over a long time horizon, which is 7.25% over a multi-decade horizon. We don't expect to achieve those returns every year. We know single years are going to bounce around, but what we tried to do is put together an asset mix that we think will get us there over the long run. All of the data included in the investment slides today is as of June 30, 2022, so as of the end of the last fiscal year. Nevada PERS ended last fiscal year with $54.3 billion in total fund assets. And if I was going to describe Nevada PERS investment approach in just a couple of words, I would say that efficiency and discipline are the two things that I think we do well, specifically within the retirement system. We kind of decided a long time ago, what can we control, what can't we control? We know that we can't control markets, but we know that we can control our behavior. We can continue to implement a disciplined approach across all market cycles, and we can try to be as efficient as possible. So that's something that we spent a lot of time with, and it's something that Nevada PERS investment program over the years has become known for nationwide. A fund of our size would typically have north of 20 internal investment staff. Some funds considerably more than that. Nevada PERS maintains an investment staff of 2 people, so we keep it really lean on the staff front. And in addition to that, we try to keep our fees as low as possible. We know that we can't control markets, but we can control our underlying costs, and that's where the efficiency piece of our underlying philosophy comes in. Nevada PERS investment costs on an annual basis are around $225 million a year less than the typical public fund. We have a much more simple structure, less complexity, 100% indexed across all public market asset classes. So public equities, bonds, both on the domestic and international side, are indexed, keeps our costs really low. And over the course of a decade, saving $225 million in fees every year, compounding that out at our assumed rate of return of 7.25% will equate to a savings over the median fund structure of more than $3 billion over the course of a decade. So fees are a big deal, and at the end of the day, we want the dollars that are contributed by the employers and the employees into the system to be compounding for their benefit and ultimately not for the benefit of paying them out in fees. In addition to the larger PERS fund, we also manage 3 other portfolios. As Tina noted, one for the legislators, which was at the end of last fiscal year, $4.7 million in total fund assets. One for Nevada judges, which ended the year at $164 million in assets, and then a separate pool of assets for public employers wishing to pre-fund their post-retirement healthcare benefits, which ended the year at $702 million. So 4 funds total. One of the things that you'll notice about the smaller funds is that there's even fewer pie slices than on the previous page. These little portfolios, or they're not little, but relative to the larger PERS fund, are extraordinarily simple in structure and design, but they've proven to be very effective. And it's one of the reasons why Nevada PERS larger portfolio has kind of evolved the way that it has over the years, is that we've been managing these small portfolios in a 100% index structure for more than 2 decades now, and they've held up in terms of performance relative to significantly more complex strategies. And so these little portfolios are among the most efficient in the industry, with total costs less than 2 basis points every year. So Nevada PERS investment returns over time. This page depicts investment returns or performance through for various time periods through June 30, 2022. The most recent fiscal year was as most everyone knows, a difficult year for markets. PERS finished the fiscal year down 5.2%. But over long time horizons, over the last 3, 5, 10, and since inception periods, PERS returns have surpassed the underlying actuarial return assumption that the actuary utilizes and assumes that we're going to achieve over long time horizons. So over short time horizons, returns are going to be kind of all over the map, but what we try to do is get us there over those longer duration periods. It's kind of important to note over 5 years time periods, that's what the actuary uses as a smooth return that goes into our underlying actuarial valuations. So anytime that that 5-year return is above that 7.25% long-term assumption, that would imply that we'll probably be rolling some gains into our annual valuations. If it's below that, which it has been before and probably will be again, because 5 years in the context of a long time horizon plan is still pretty short. If it's below that, that'll imply that there'll probably be some investment losses. So PER's simple approach has not only proven to be, I would say, cost effective and certainly efficient, but it's proven to be effective over long time horizons. And what you see on the page titled PERS Peer Group Analysis, what this chart is called, it's a floating bar chart, and it shows PERS performance for various time periods through June 30, 2022, relative to a database of large public pension funds. So these are big state pension funds in excess of $1 billion, and how does PERS return stack up relative to them over time? For instance, the bar on the furthest left is last fiscal year. We're in the top 33rd percentile of large public pension funds. But the more important numbers, because again, the short-term numbers are going to be pretty volatile. We don't expect to be at the top of the database every year. We spend about a third of our years historically towards the bottom of the database. But over a longer time period, that simple approach has proven to be effective relative to other funds. So over the last 3, 5, 7, 10, and since inception time periods, PERS returns are towards the top of the database. And these databases are all gross of fees, they're not net of fees. And since we know we have around a 40 basis point fee advantage, it's safe to assume that on a net of fee basis, PERS returns would actually be a little bit more competitive. So PERS' simple approach over time is not just inexpensive, but it's proven to be effective. And then the last page of the investment section of today's presentation contains PERS annual performance for years ended June 30. And the red line across the middle of the page depicts PERS long-term actuarial return assumption of 7.25%. And it's always important to note that over single year time periods, we don't expect to be at the top of the public fund database every year, nor do we expect to better that 7.25% return assumption every year. We know individual years are going to be all over the map. For instance, the furthest left return is last fiscal year, the negative 5.2. The previous year was up 27.3. This pattern of returns well above and below that long-term assumption in single years is something that we need to expect. It's something that I think gets confused a little bit in the industry, because we'll get to the end of the year and maybe public funds had an average return of 5%. You'll see some news headlines, hey, public funds missed their return targets this year. But at the end of the day, our return targets aren't single-year targets. They're multi-decade targets, and that's what we ultimately designed that investment program to do. And it has done that over extended time periods. And that's all I have on the investment side, certainly.
Are you all done with the presentation?
Yes, we are, and we'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any. Otherwise, we just want to thank you for allowing us to present to you about our agency. We're very proud of the work that we do for our public employees, and we're very proud to be in front of you today.
All right, thank you. And for committee members, some of you have messaged me that you individually have questions. I don't need to know the question. You just have to let me know that you have a question for those members, because there might have been some confusion. But then also, if you have a question, just raise your hand so I know that. Assemblywoman Gonzalez, we're going to go ahead and start with you.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. And so my question is, I understand that there's going to be a contribution increase that will go into effect this July, and I'm curious how that will impact professions like teachers. So although they're getting a raise, are they going to be really seeing an impact in their checks with this increase? Thank you.
Madam Chair, to you and through you to the Assemblywoman. Yes, so the statutory mechanism, basically what it does is every other year, the contribution rate is subject to change if it's a certain percentage above or below the current rate. And so this year, there is scheduled to be a contribution rate increase, and it is a bigger one than we have seen in the past, and that has to do with changes to the assumptions, for the most part, people living longer, the payroll growth being lower. So that is kind of why there's the rate change. But to get to answering your question, the statutory mechanism right now is that the employees pay half of the contribution rate. So if you have, say, a 2% contribution rate change, the employer will pay 1% and the employee will pay 1% of that rate. And we have two contribution type plans. One is called the employee-employer pay plan, where the employee pays as an after-tax deduction. And so that after-tax deduction would then grow by 1% of their pay, so they would see a lower pay. The other one is what we call the employer pay plan, which often gets confused by people. The employees still pay half, but the money comes entirely from the employer. And all teachers, I believe, in the state, except for charter schools, are under what you call the employer pay plan. So that means that the employee's contribution has already been taken out of the salary before the salary is developed. So that is a pre-tax reduction of salary to account for that contribution. And the reason that that is in place is it actually provides the employee a little bit larger take-home pay than the other pay plan, because you are not then paying taxes on that, since it's a pre-tax reduction of salary. So what will happen typically with teachers and anyone else on the employer pay, which is also all police, fire that are local government, and then any one state that has chosen the employer pay plan, say you get that 2% rate increase. So what will happen is the employer can choose one of two methods to do that. They can either reduce the salary of the employee by half of the rate change, which is typically what the state has done in the past. Well, it's historically almost always what the state has done. Or the employer can choose to go in lieu of a pay raise. So you could see a level pay. The employer says, we would have given you that 1% pay increase, but you're not going to see it because it's going to go towards your contribution rate. So probably the easiest way to think of it is if, for instance, teachers are going to get a COLA, the COLA essentially is going to be reduced by the amount of the contribution rate increase. So if the COLA is bigger than the contribution increase, they will still see some COLA, but it may not be as big as they may have been expecting, because their salary is going to be reduced for half the contribution rate. That is currently how the contribution rate mechanism works.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I have a couple, okay, I'm just making sure. So who else has a question? I see Assemblyman DeLong. Who else? Taylor, Nguyen, and Carter. Got it. All right, I'll go to Assemblyman Nguyen next, and then I'm going to go ahead and go to Assemblyman DeLong, and then I'll have Assemblyman Carter, then Assemblyman Taylor. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, thank you for this awesome presentation. I've learned a lot in this last 20 minutes. Definitely is a lot of numbers and data to keep up with, so you do have the hard work to make sure that we protect our public employees' funds. Just a housekeeping question for me, literally, just because looking at all these numbers, I'm seeing that there's a lot of recent updates, except for the police and fire fund membership. The data is actually with a fiscal year 2020 and 19. Do you have more recent data? It's on slide number 7.
Madam Chair, to you and through you to the Assemblyman, Tina List for the record. I apologize. Those numbers are the updated numbers. I apparently did not update the headers. So those are actually 2022 and 2021. I do apologize for that. But the numbers are correct for those years.
Okay, perfect. So that's it. Sorry, that was the only thing. I just want to make sure that if we had some kind of changes drop off just due to the recent incidents we had the last couple of years. So I just want to make sure if there's a drastic change in the number of members in terms of the pandemic that we just went through. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And presenters, please feel free to go speak directly to the members. Assemblywoman DeLong.
Thank you, Madam Chair. How are the administrative costs covered? Do they come out of contributions or are they general fund?
Assemblyman DeLong, Tina List for the record, that is a dedicated portion of the contribution rate. So a certain percentage of the contribution rate is dedicated to the administrative services and administrative expenses. So that comes from the employers and the employees. So the only way their general funds is through the contributions of a state employer or employee. So they are all coming from the contribution rates.
You actually anticipated my follow-on question is, what portion of the employer funding that's outlined on slide 5 comes from general fund versus state or local or city taxes?
Thank you, Assemblyman Tina List for the record. I don't know the exact percentage of how much would be general fund because approximately, including university system, approximately 20% of the fund is state, which means about 80% is going to be local government, with the highest group being school districts. I think if you aggregate the school districts, they're close to about 50% of the fund. And then I don't know kind of where their funding necessarily comes from. And I do know that a lot of the 20% of the state, there's a good portion of those that are general fund and then a portion of those that are not, and I don't know those percentages.
Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblyman Carter.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is about the chart on 14. Is that actuarial value or market value?
Yes, Assemblyman, again, Steve Edmondson, Nevada PERS. Those are market value returns. Those are not the actuarial value returns.
Okay, could we get the actuarial values?
Sorry. Absolutely, we have the actuary values as well.
Okay, and a follow-up is, do we have the actuary, do we have a funding standard account status where we're at with the funding standard account?
Tina List for the record. That is not a term I recognize from public pension funding. And so if you'd like, I can give you the entire valuation, which will give you the actuarial values, or I can break it down and only give you those pages that you want, whichever you prefer. That I can certainly send those to you through your committee staff and your chair, if that would be helpful to you.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I believe the last person that has questions is going to be Assemblymember Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of questions, but thank you for the presentation. As a first-time legislator and first on the committee, it's really good to get inside the information of PERS, so I appreciate that so much. On slide 8, you mentioned, you shared with us the types of benefit recipients, service retirees, disability beneficiaries, and so on. For the beneficiaries and the survivors, so when an employee chooses to make those adjustments to what they withdraw and leaves it for them, do they get the same amount?
Assemblyman Tina List for the record. So when you go to retire, you have a number of options you can choose. So you can get what we call the unmodified option, which is what you've earned. Or you can choose a reduced amount to leave that for your beneficiary. If you take what we call option 2, then the beneficiary would continue on with the same amount, but that would be a bigger reduction. You can take an option 3, which is you can leave 50% of what you are receiving to your beneficiary, so they get a little bit lower than you were getting, but then your reduction is lower, so you don't pay as much for that coverage. And then we have some custom options where you can choose, we call them options 5 and option 6, where you can choose any percentage between that a 50% benefit to the 100% benefit. You cannot choose to leave a bigger benefit than you are receiving. But you can custom choose a percentage within certain federal and state guidelines.
Thank you for that. So basically, it depends upon what the retiree chooses at the time when they begin to get their benefit. They can choose which way they go and which way they want for their retirees. And same for survivors. Then the survivors will get whatever the retiree gets in.
To you, Assemblyman Taylor, Tina List for the record. The survivors is a little bit different. So the survivors is for anyone that dies in active service, or if they're inactive but had 10 years of service. So that will depend on the service level of the member when they passed away. So if they were fully eligible to retire, then yes, those options would be available, but they're set in statutes which one they get. If you pass away, let me make sure I get this right, with between, if it's an active member, they're covered with 2 years of service. So if it's between 2 and 10 years of service, it is a set monthly amount. For the spouse or survivor beneficiary, that is $450 per month. And the minor children would be $400 a month. If you reach that 15 years of service when the active member passes away, it's what we would call the option 3, so it would be 50% of the earned benefit. And if they reach the 20% level before they pass away, it would be the 100% of the earned benefit.
Okay, the 20-year level.
The 20-year level.
Okay.
And then we do have some special provisions for an employee who passed away in the line of duty.
Okay. Thank you. Just one more question, if I may, Madam Chair. On slide 10, when you shared with us the information regarding the funded ratios, would you just review one more time? I may have missed something. What does that total percentage represent in that last column?
Assemblyman Taylor, Tina List for the record. So what that is so we take every year, the actuary determines what they estimate to be our liabilities out into the future for everybody that's in the plan. So we determine how much we believe we are going to have to pay them up till their date of death. And so we estimate those liabilities, we compare that to our assets. And so that number, 75% or 76%, whichever the case may be, is the assets compared to the liabilities. So that means basically we have 75% of the assets on hand today for the projected liabilities that we will owe out into the future. And I want to make really clear, those are not liabilities that we owe today. Those are liabilities out into the future. And so we are on each year, you can either get gains or losses to that unfunded liability depending on how you do against your assumptions. And so each year that can change, but each year's new liabilities or new gains have a 20-year amortization period because that roughly equals the average career of a member. And then one thing I just wanted to note, public pension funds, and I think this also will go back to Assemblyman Carter's question, public pension funds are not subject to the federal ERISA laws and so aren't subject to the same funding requirements and standards of private sector, partially because these are long-term liabilities and governments are long-term entities that are assumed to never going to be going out of business, as where you have different funding standards for your private sector because private companies, much more likely, obviously, to be going out of business than the state of Nevada. And so that's essentially what that number represents. So the assets we have on hand today for the liabilities we owe out into the future. And since those are future liabilities and those are estimated liabilities, that's why it's good to keep an eye on this number, but not to be concerned that you're not 100% today. But obviously, 100% is the funding goal, and on our current amortization period, we're about 16 years from that.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, committee members. Are there any additional questions? Go ahead, Assemblyman De Silva.
It's Assemblyman De Silva, District 28. Thank you again for your presentation. As a participant in PERS, I'm very happy to know that the diligence that's paid attention towards this publicly managed fund. So thank you for that. My question is this. So in regards to the outlooks, looking at the vibrancy and the health of our PERS fund, 20, 30 years into the future, are there like any areas that you have maybe a personal concern with that you should maybe let us know about, maybe in regards to an investment strategy or data pertaining to the workforce, so on and so forth?
Thank you, Assemblyman De Silva. Tina Liss, and I'll also let Steve talk about the investment side of that question for just a minute. And I appreciate that you really hit on kind of what we do and look at on a daily basis, which is our demographics and our economic changing conditions, because that kind of hits back to why there's a contribution rate coming up this year, and kind of the magnitude of the contribution rate, because we do those experience studies that look at our experience both on the economic side and for our demographics to kind of keep track of how are things changing? Are people living longer? Are they not living as long? When are they retiring? What's the investment strategy? And so we made some fairly significant, more conservative changes to those assumptions in 2021. So this is the first contribution rate that has those assumptions in them. And I believe that really puts us on good footing going forward. We made some changes that we've been kind of keeping our eye on for about the last 10 years. And then the actuary decided that this was kind of the time to make those changes. The biggest issue, and I think you'll probably hear this from other agencies in various contexts, our funding, it's a percentage of payroll. So it's dependent on how our payroll grows. And state of Nevada had very highly increasing payrolls through the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, early 2000s, and then the Great Recession hit, and our public payroll and our active membership went way downhill. And so for the past 10 years, we've been looking at that payroll growth, and that's been one of the things that's really been affecting us, is that the payroll growth has been sometimes negative. Which tells you that the public employment in the state is way down, and you may see that as a teacher with teacher vacancies. You see it, I think, state police fire at the moment. But having made those changes now in 2021, now that we kind of see that the payroll growth is a 10-year trend, is probably going to stay with us. We've made those changes, so we feel pretty good about a lot of the demographic changes we've made over the last 2 to 3 years, just kind of going forward. And then if the public employment does increase, then that'll put it even in better place. But we also made some pretty large changes on our longevity tables because people are living longer. And we have made those changes and reflected those in the costs as well. So we feel pretty good about all those changes we made for the experience study. And I'll let Steve talk a little bit about the investment side on the outlook.
Sure. Assemblyman De Silva, Steve Edmondson again, Nevada PERS. On the investment side, I would say one of my that's always kind of at the back of my head and is always a concern for me, at least. When I think about a 30-year time horizon, I'm fairly confident that we're going to get pretty close to our long-term assumption if you give us that time. And that's ultimately what we're designed to do. But I get a little bit nervous given volatility of markets. Anything inside of 10 years is a relatively short time period for an investment portfolio. If you tell a 21-year-old out of college and they just got a 401k plan, they put those assets to work, they continue to contribute over the course of a 40-year career, they're going to probably be in decent shape by the end of that time period. But if you talk to them, 5 years after they started, they might even have less money than they put into it, because that's the nature of markets. And so my concern is always a little bit more short term, is we have a long funding horizon, but we have short-term implications given markets that do actually feed into contribution rates and sometimes even employees' paychecks. So I worry a little bit at times that the short time horizon, I just want to be sure that near-term market volatility doesn't kind of derail the long-term plan.
Thank you, and I believe those are all the questions. So thank you, Ms. Liz and Mr. Edmondson, for your presentations today. And just a reminder to the committee members, because we have so many newer people as well, when you do have follow-ups, please ask for a follow-up. Well, today we had plenty of time. That might not always be the case, so just make sure you ask. We might, especially in the coming weeks as we approach deadline days, which is a whiles away, but it comes sooner than you can imagine. We'll have to do 5 or 6 bills in a day, and so we'll just have a lot limited time. But thank you so much for your presentation. We do appreciate it. At this time, we will open it for public comment. Members of the public may provide public comment either in person or by telephone. Written public comment may be submitted up to 24 hours after the meeting adjournment. Do we have the phone number? Thank you. And the phone number to call in is 669-900-6833. And I'll go ahead and take the individuals in person. As a reminder, please make sure you state and spell your name for the record. Go ahead, ma'am.
Good morning, Chair Torres and Vice Chair Duran. My name for the record is Terry Laird. I'm the Executive Director at RPEN, the Retired Public Employees of Nevada, where we represent all public employees, retirees, and actives who are still working and hope to one day collect a pension from Nevada PERS. We are a 501c4 federally tax-exempt nonprofit organization with close to 8,000 dues-paying members. RPEN was created in 1976, incorporated in 1977, with the sole mission remaining the same today, to protect the pension and health care benefits earned by all public employees who typically contribute to their own pension, and contrary to what some may think, public employees are taxpayers too. But the state of Nevada doesn't pay into Social Security, as you heard in the PERS presentation, so oftentimes their defined benefit pension is all they have when they retire, and any state employee who also had time in the private sector and paid into Social Security will lose about 2/3 of that money thanks to the windfall elimination and government pension offset that penalizes them from stemming from a federal law that came about in 1983. So RPEN has always and always will seek to protect PERS recipients and the pension state workers earn. We appreciate all the good work done at Nevada PERS using safe investments at low cost and fees and keeping it on par with other pension plans much larger. We hope this legislature will see the value in PERS and look to protect it as well. There have been efforts made during previous sessions to place new hires into a defined contribution 401k, and we would not support that because it would have detrimental effects on the existing defined benefit system, as well as cause increased costs to have 2 pension plans. PERS is not broken, therefore it does not need to be fixed. Thank you for your time and welcome back to Carson City.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Irvin.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Torres and committee members. Kent Irvin, Kentervin, State President of the Nevada Faculty Alliance, the independent statewide association of professional employees at Nevada's public colleges and universities. This is our 40th anniversary year. Since 1983, we have been working to empower our members to be fully engaged in our mission to help students succeed. All of our classified colleagues at NSHE and about 15% of faculty are members of PERS. Faculty on NSHE's retirement plan alternative receive the same contribution amounts as in PERS per statute. The retirement plan is essential for recruiting and retaining state employees. Nevada PERS has one of the strongest investment programs in the country. Using a disciplined approach with low-cost investments and only 2 investment professionals on public employee salaries, PERS has exceeded its investment goals and market benchmarks over the long term. In contrast, another state pension plan has been in the news with an investment staff of 100 who award themselves millions in bonuses based on benchmarks that they choose themselves. When the assumptions about future experience are not met, an unfunded actuarial liability builds up. Nevada PERS unfunded liability ratio is about in the middle among the 50 states. In 2021, as you just heard, PERS took a deep dive into the actuarial assumptions and changed them to be more fiscally conservative. That's the responsible thing to do, and it is a main reason that the PERS contribution rates are going up next year. This will put PERS on a firm footing over the next decades. But like getting a shorter-term mortgage and increasing monthly payments, it increases the pain now to pay off the debt faster. Fortunately, this increase is happening at a time when the state budget can absorb the increase, but state employee salaries need to be adjusted to cover the PERS increases. Thank you.
Thank you. Right at the 2 minutes, too. You're a pro. Is there anybody else wishing to testify in public comment from the audience? At this time, there's no one here present. Is there anyone in Las Vegas? And BPS, do we have someone on the line?
Yes, Chair, we do. Thank you. To participate in public comment, please press *9 on your phone to take your place in the queue. Again, if you wish to participate in public comment, please press *9 on your phone to take your place in the queue. Chair, it appears that we have no callers wishing to give public comment at this time.
All right, thank you. Are there any comments from members before we adjourn? Mr. MacArthur, it looks like you had something to say. Oh, okay. Sorry, I must have mistook that. That concludes our meeting for today. Our next meeting will take place tomorrow, Wednesday, February 8th in this room at 9 a.m. Thank you.